What would you know that, like, if your kid was on the other side and you know the rest of your force, like, you know the rest of the cops, like, you know how they would treat your kid, right? Whereas the white guys were like, fuck you, pig. All right, let's watch this. The online leftist cook video from FD Signifier that you guys have been wanting
I'm
me
not
to
gonna have
watch.
fun with this one. All right, so we're not gonna have fun with this one. We're not gonna have fun with this one. It is what it is, but can't have fun all the time. I wrote a script for this. I'm looking right at it, but it feels inadequate. It feels like something that's gonna require a longer follow-up video, but it also feels like something I've talked about so many times. It's just frustrating, but here we are. So everybody knows that Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race.
Wait, what?
And that Kamala Harris took his place. And
Wait,
we've
what?
seen a very surprising shift in attitudes toward electoral politics from a lot of online left-leaning, starting at just general liberals, going further left attitudes since Kamala came to the forefront. And that's created an interesting and concerning and very volatile conversation around what leftists should be doing in this American election. If you ask me, the gap between what to expect in a Kamala Harris presidency and what to expect in a Joe Biden presidency is not all that big. And if you were resigned to not voting for Joe Biden on the basis of certain principles, history tells us you probably should feel the same way about Kamala Harris. However, Kamala is not Joe Biden. In 2020, she ran left of Joe Biden on pretty much every issue. And if we take into account her time as a senator, she'd overall have one of the most progressive records for an incoming president in American history. Now, let's be clear, the bar is in hell. We're not talking about anything radical, world-changing, or even status quo changing from her record, but she at least seems to be flashing signs that she might be amenable to being pressured from the left, which Biden showed himself to be pretty much immune to. So for those of you who feel like the removal of Biden from the top of the ticket is something to respond to, that is a reasonable way to look at things. That said, these two demonstrably true statements of non-committal that I just gave will be enough to get certain people very mad in the comment section at me. It's just the nature of online political discourse, especially right now, as so many of us are far too invested in what voting means here in the States. It is a dumpster fire right now. To be specific, I'm speaking to the real significant animosity toward Black liberals who have gotten energized by the sudden emergence.
I missed it.
Just the nature of online political discourse, especially right now, as so many of us are far too flashing in hell. We're not talking about anything radical, world-changing, or even status quo changing from her record, but she at least seems to be flashing signs that she might be amenable to being pressured from the left, which Biden showed himself to be pretty much immune to. So for those of you who feel like
everyone's annoying, they love me rewinding shit.
The removal of Biden from the top of the ticket is something to respond to, that is a reasonable way to look at things. That said, these two demonstrably true statements of non-committal that I just gave will be enough to get certain people very mad in the comment section at me.
Wait, he's not saying I will get mad at him. He's saying that chatters are so dumb. He's just using me as a meme to demonstrate rage.
It's just the nature of online political discourse, especially right now, as so many of us are far too invested in what voting means here in the States. It is a dumpster fire right now. To be specific, I'm speaking to the real significant animosity toward Black liberals who have gotten energized by the sudden emergence of Kamala Harris and the corresponding criticism from white leftists and now folks from the Middle East who see this as a portrayal of various causes. And the CIA and just counterintelligence, counterinsurgents forces, they have got us cooked right now. We are.
I don't even know if it's the CIA, honestly. I think it's on autopilot. We're just doing it to ourselves now. It's just how successful this Cold War and subsequent Red Scare propaganda was.
Down bad. So I want to be clear, while I tend to agree with the overt leftists in this conversation, it's also very true that you're not about to talk to Black folks any type of way online and think that that's going to go over well. I've noticed how many Black folks my age and younger have gotten charged up for Kamala Harris. It's starting to remind me of Obama in 2008, which is wild because This is not how we were feeling about Kamala in 2020, or to be honest, the last 4 years. The fact that she's been able to suddenly emerge as this superstar for the Democratic Party and admittedly has been running an effective campaign, it is mind blowing. It's kind of scary because Kamala Harris was the first person to quit the campaign in 2020. But somehow she's effectively running the exact same playbook that Obama did in 08 and is working as if we don't know what Obama was by 2016. And this is not good. It's not good for a lot of reasons that I don't want to get into on the B-Sides video. But the reality is the not goodness of it is going to be very hard to explain to liberals and black liberals alike, period. Especially, and let's be honest, if you are not having real conversations with black people and have not been doing that at any point in time up until this point. As a person who was a hardcore Obama fan in 2008, I can tell you there was nothing you could have told me in that moment that would have changed my mind about Obama at that time. At best, you'd have been ignored. At worst, you'd have been cursed out, which is, I think, what's happening to a lot of white leftists online. But beyond the white leftists, who I'll get back to in a second, this is also happening between black folks, black liberals in America, along with some black folks in places like the Congo and Middle Eastern folks in Palestine, Lebanon, that have been perpetual but invisible victims of American imperialism for generations, places that Obama himself bombed and drone struck relentlessly while he was president. From a purely political standpoint, I stand with the victims of American imperialism and have no real allegiance to America's behavior overseas. And although I completely recognize that a Trump presidency will be worse for everyone, I also completely understand the fear and frustration that some folks outside of the US have at seeing us start stand accounts for a presidential candidate who we can rest assured will only continue the American imperialistic agenda. And much like Obama, will be able to hide these atrocities behind black excellence and black success and black faces in high places and a lot of things that will get black liberals charged up to defend when it's really indefensible. When you're hearing some of these folks in the Middle East talk about how black people have a role in colonization, they're not wrong. That's what they're talking about. But from the perspective of a lot of black folks, liberal and otherwise, this really feels out of pocket and extra aggressive, which it has been. Because on the flip side, it's always us and our image that is constantly evoked and used to push left-leaning agendas of all sorts, both here in America, but worldwide. And most times this can look amazing. It looks like these global moments of solidarity where we can rejoice in the fact that other people in the world are standing with us. But in other times, it looks like white girls painting themselves black for poorly thought out art pieces. History has taught black people in America, from any political standpoint, that at the end of the day, we will probably be on our own and cannot count on anyone but each other. And even then, I mean, if you look at like the Black Lives Matter organization and what that did, you can't even count on black folks sometimes. And that's really frustrating because it's a reminder of how virulent and ever-present anti-blackness is and how it comes out so quickly and reflexively. As soon as any given person that considers himself an ally has a problem with something a black person said or did, the anti-blackness is just like syndrome. Like it just comes right out. And it makes you feel like none of these people are actually allies, even when they are acting in an allyship role, because why is that so easy for you to fall back into? Because CIA role in this, why are black folks getting the attention for the newfound support for Kamala Harris? We are not the driving force behind American politics. We are 13% of the population, maybe 5% of the electorate.
I think a part of the reason is because the liberal Democratic Party oftentimes will so cynically weaponize black bodies as like a shield in a way that is a little bit different than the Republican Party, but still kind of similar in that regard, where there's like this monolithic force of blackness. Like the greatest example of this happened with Joe Biden, where I felt like I was losing my fucking mind. Polling data showed majority of black vote Joe Biden out. Okay. And also beyond that, the Joe Biden isn't black. Like, and yet people kept saying, oh, well, black people like Joe Biden. So if you don't like Joe Biden, it's because you're anti-black. And it's like, people, myself included, were saying Kamala Harris would be a better substitute than Joe Biden. Kamala Harris is black. And people were still trying to make that argument. Okay. People were still trying to make that argument. They made that argument against Bernie Sanders And it was effective. They made that argument against Bernie Sanders during the primaries, and it was fucking effective. They were like, well, black people voted for Joe Biden, obviously, and the Congressional Black Caucus likes Joe Biden. Jim Clyburn likes Joe Biden. He's black. So if you don't like Joe Biden, you don't like black people. You're racist. Okay? Which is crazy. It's a crazy thing to say. It is a crazy thing to say, and yet people say it all the time.
Like the fact that black people and Congolese people and Palestinian people are fighting each other online right now is the most ass backwards and heartbreaking thing I've seen online in a while. And it shows
I felt this way of you until I started watching the stream, that I was like an anti-black person. I know that people say that about me all the time too, cynically. And I honestly, I mean, sometimes black people say that too, like Black Twitter, sometimes Barbs specifically.
Flaws in the medium of social media as a tool for seeking liberation or even just educating on certain topics. But it's not just the medium, like it's us, it's y'all. The way y'all act and think when it comes to these platforms, it don't working. And something needs to change.
Your comments about Sprite are kind of anti-black. Why? Because I said it's spicy. I said I like it. It's just not my favorite because it's a little too spicy. It's like too close to fucking tonic water for my taste. Come on. It's true. It's true. Sprite up like too close to a fucking tonic water for my taste is spicy. And I love spice, by the way. Come on now. Don't say that's white as fuck. Dog, I literally eat, like I eat hot on a daily basis. I'm Turkish. Like, come on. I am white, but like, you know, I am spicy white. Okay. I fucking love spice. Get the fuck out of here. You can't come for me on that. I'm just saying that like Sprite is not actually spicy. I'm saying that it's like, it's got a kick. I'm using spice as a substitute for fucking kick. Okay. Yeah.
I've said in so many videos that these platforms are designed explicitly to minimize informed and useful discourse and maximize hot takes and abrasiveness. A lot of good education and communication is possible, but it constantly has to fight for space with the most ridiculous and misguided messages ever. The type of nuance and care and insight that this conversation needs, it's not going to happen in a 60-second TikTok video, or even a, hour-long YouTube video is only going to scratch the surface. And don't get me started on fucking Twitter. Like, when I think about the dude, Nacho Supremo, I don't know this dude's name. You know who I'm talking about. That's getting drugged. He was probably the first person of a significant size to get drugged for his response to Kamala Harris.
But it wasn't even about Kamala Harris. This wasn't about Kamala Harris. I think some people were criticizing him about Kamala Harris, but I totally understood why people were upset, because it completely minimizes the human being that he is supposedly on the side of in this circumstance, the victim. You know what I mean? It's like belittling the victim and also somewhat belittling black people in general. Like memifying a horrific extrajudicial killing of a black woman in her own home in this way is obviously going to draw a lot of anger from a lot of people. That's what it is.
You're not voting for the cop. You need to vote for the cop because it's the cop's turn to be president.
I imagine that had he not been content brained, that he'd have responded differently up.
I also remember who it was, but like it might have been a TikTok video I watched or something, but like the complex nature in which like how black people talk about black people in the police force. And obviously it's not monolithic in its understanding at all, of course. But like there was someone talking about during the Black Lives Matter protests in Minnesota, actually, in the immediate aftermath of George Floyd's execution. White guys who were yelling at black cops. There was a black cop there, and I think I think the people in the crowd were saying like, think about your children, right? Like, think about your children. What would you that like if your kid was on the other side and the rest of your force, like the rest of the cops, like how they would treat your kid, right? Whereas the white guys were like, fuck you, pig. and like calling the cops like Uncle Toms or whatever. Is it Josh Johnson, the comedian? It might have been Christian. Like the white guys were like way more aggro and tackling it in a very different way, in a way that almost, it was Christian. Okay, I think it was Christian. It was really good. It was a video. It was Christian Divine.
Front, and then when he was brought to the table to say, hey, this wasn't cool. I think in a situation where people get a chance to have actual conversations that don't have to be consumed through this medium, people tend to come off way better. But when you have to have pithy soundbite content that also somehow is supposed to speak to these complex and big brain political ideologies, you have to squeeze and flatten them into fucking Burger King sandwiches. And then we respond to these flattened, commodified, optimized for content consumption, share and subscribe messages around these politics as if it's the real message, as if it's the massive text that the messaging was developed from, or the years-long study and like organizing work and community work that all this stuff really is supposed to lead to. We make it just this, and this doesn't do much of anything except for create the environment for what's happening right now. And because the hot take version of these politics is what it's shared, is what builds platforms, people are incentivized to behave in the most non-productive ways. We gotta stop. I really want folks to just step away from the keyboard and go to your own tangible communities, IRL if possible, but online in smaller pockets if necessary, and focus on work and education and communication.
Yes. And be normal when you do that. Don't be fucking weird. Don't be sweaty. Don't be gross. Don't be a weirdo. The things, identify the pain points, the pressure points in your community, and figure out a good way to communicate how to fix those problems. For the chatters who don't understand why that video was bad, the Machino Dorito video is a weird form of dehumanization that distilled a real-life black woman down to a simple talking point to be weaponized. It was out of pocket, even if the idea was correct. Also, he does have like he gives off very arrogant vibes. He has a very sanctimonious, smug attitude, which I'm sure plays a big role.
That could be done there, because this situation happening right now has PSYOP written all over it. And part of me feels this because unironically, this again all started with white leftists, as these things tend to do. And that's a bugaboo that I've had forever, because it feels like so many white leftists barely know how to effectively communicate with each other in like useful and effective ways. And I don't know what in the world made them think that some of these statements and videos were going to go over well with black people, especially black liberals, who we have to do work to communicate with effectively. Way back in the Ally video, my homegirl, Dr. Candace Hargins, made a comment about, like, do you want to have progress or do you want to be correct? You know what I'm saying? Like, folks are really caught up on being technically correct as opposed to building coalition and community and coming up with strong responses to conflicts and issues. Folks are more interested in style points and pithy comebacks and aren't considering how they sound and come off and whether or not they've actually done it.
This is dodging the issue of Islamophobia within the black community. What are you talking about? The black community is literally Muslim. What the fuck? There's hella black Muslims, bro. What do you mean? If you look at like every other demographic in the United States of America and their Islamophobic sentiment, black people across the board are infinitely more understanding of Muslims. Don't be silly. You are insane. Like, I get mad when people hyper focus on black people and talk about like homophobia and other forms of bigotry. Like, where people will be like, oh, dude, black people are really homophobic. Black people are really misogynistic. It's like a very liberal way of like trying to play into the same like stereotyping of the angry, violent black man, but from like a way that gives liberals permission to speak on black people like that, especially when it's like, the fuck are you talking about? Literally, no community is monolithic. The black community is not monolithic at all. But beyond that, like, white people across the board are just as fucking homophobic and just as misogynistic as black people are. Except we don't look at white people as a monolith because we understand that that is the in group, that is the dominant group. So we don't analyze it from the same fucking framework. But overall, when you look at black people in the black community in the United States of America, Islamophobia is not a huge issue at all. As a matter of fact, I would say that they are like out of every fucking group, out of every subgroup, out of every like racial category in the United States of America, if you were to look at who's like more Islamophobic, black people would be in the of that list. They would be the least Islamophobic group of people, dead last. They also happen to have a significant number of Muslims. Like, their support for Palestine has been scary. Wait, what? Less than Arab people? Okay, that doesn't count, man. What the fuck? Yes, black people as a group of as a population subgroup that isn't predominantly Muslim is less Islamophobic than all the other groups, with the exception of Arabs.
Anything to help the situation. We live in an online world where everyone is trying to have a monologue written by Aaron Sorkin. If you don't know who Aaron Sorkin is, he's a TV writer who's written some great films and TV shows over the years, like Social Network and A Few Good Men. And he's
Actually, Arab people are surprisingly chill about Islam. It's crazy, I know.
really good at something that I think has brainwormed so many people on the left. The grandstanding, put them in their place, owned by facts and logic monologue moment. That's why so many of these videos are such and such destroys conservative over abortion bill. Like that term, that word, destroy, that's an Aaron Sorkin thing.
No, I'm going to hold you to an answer on that. What makes America the greatest country in the world? What about the people? Why is America
not the greatest country in the world, Professor? That's my answer.
Let's talk about...
Fine. Sharon, the NEA is a loser. Yeah, it accounts for a penny out of our paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime and column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. Sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement.
Bro, the fucking misogyny jumped out. Aaron Sorkin hates women. I will never let this go. Dude, he's the number one hater of women. Yo, remember when Aaron Sorkin wrote an op-ed for the New York Times where he literally was like, anyone but Kamala, I think Mitt Romney. I think Joe Biden should endorse Mitt Romney. He fucking hates women so much, which is why it's hilarious that liberals love him so much. Okay? He just, dude, even in that brief moment, he's like, hey, sorority girl, if you happen to find yourself accidentally in a voting booth, like, come on, dude. Come on. I love Aaron Sorkin.
Penny out of our paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime and column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. Sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household.
Despite being acontextual, like Hassan mentioned, the idea of black Islamophobia is another example of sampling hyperfixating on a crosstab of a stat, like how you people focus on black male Trump supporters, but male Trump supporters high across the race. Also, Black Panthers, Malcolm X. No, that is... Wait, what do you mean? That's what I always talk about with respect to black male Trump supporters. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. What's on screen? I just realized.
Income, number 4 in labor force, and number...
Like, specifically, not definitely him, right? Because I think that's just the nature of some of these conversations. But the goal of having your Aaron Sorkin moment has made people stop being empathetic and effective and clear. And
Tacoma Wept is Aaron Sorkin-esque when you think about it. It is quite Sorkin-esque. It is his penmanship. Like that Tacoma Wept, and also, oh my God, I'm realizing Tacoma Wept and the fucking, excuse me for knowing the intricacies of goblin porn. They do live in my mind. I never think about Vosh, except those are some of the high notes of his career, in my opinion. It's like the exact same cadence. A lot of things just clicked at the same time in my mind after seeing this Seeing this brief Aaron Sorkin moment with paired up with our favorite debate lords.
And concise with the issues and things we're trying to communicate. And we don't know how to talk to each other, but we do know what it feels like to get a standing.
The other one is a tactical N-word usage. Yeah, that's another good one. God, Bosch has so many good moments. It's like short stack goblin. At the 5th minute mark, I use an N-word, a big one. And I used it because I wanted to show my interlocutors that I'm not afraid of this word. And you could see it was successful because it got them to be shocked. I don't know any of these any of the references, and I'm so comfortable with that. I'm 2 hours away from being inside someone. It's so good. He is a poet. That word has no power over me. In this video, I drop an N-bomb, big one, hard R. I did this to show my interlocutors that their language doesn't impress me, that their slurs don't frighten me or disarm me. You can see from their reactions that it worked. They were clearly taken aback. It was a power over which I am entirely unashamed of, but I understand how that language might have upset some of you. It's so fucking good. How do you write that? How do you think that?
Ovation for having the best, strongest, most conservative, destroyed, got wrecked comeback that you can muster. Moments like that make for excellent TV, and they're cathartic. When an issue or topic is bothering you and someone
who is that copy pasta of Destiny or Vosh? Vosh, duh. Destiny would never have to fear his audience. His audience yells at him when he doesn't say the N-word. His audience is like, hey, Destiny, you haven't said the N-word in a while. What the fuck's going on? I can't remember if you're racist or not. Like that fucking stream sniper who was like, I'm shaking. Oh my God. I think Hasan is here. I'm shaking. And then he came up and he was like, Destiny made you. And then we found out he was like calling black people monkeys on the timeline. The least shocking event of all time.
You see as intelligent and witty and well-learned can like nail the issue and nail exactly what you're feeling. That's cathartic. You want to hear someone you trust break something like that down.
Yeah, this is the best Vosh clip forever.
Wait, is this guy seriously saying that I can't get laid? Incredible. I'll give you 5,000 if you can get Poontang before January 1st. Do you have any idea who the fuck you're talking to? When I got off Tinder because of the fucking quarantine, Tacoma wept. Even like ignoring the fact that I have a girlfriend, even if we're just talking like randos, I'm 2 hours away right now from being inside somebody else. This is one. I have two skills, and it's non-monogamy and speaking publicly. Okay, do some fucking research.
Do some fucking research. Oh, so fucking good, dude. Listen, look, that's the difference. The difference is, okay, like, I wouldn't even say Vosh hates me all that much. And, you know, I'm not his biggest fan, even though he has talked a lot of shit over the years. But, like, I do appreciate the artistry here, okay? I can separate the art from the artist, and I can appreciate this, okay? Whereas I feel like my haters fucking do not like me and want me to die, especially Destiny. Is this a clipped clip? Yes. Is FD actually calling you out in this video? I feel like you go through the pains to not do what he's saying. No, he's not calling me out in this. He just used me as a meme. That's why people thought he was calling me out.
I get it. I'm good at this job for a reason. But people are forgetting that after you finish clapping at the awesome way that I or some other talking head broke down the issue is still there. And it's quite possible that what I said or someone else said hasn't brought us any closer.
To be fair, when I watched V, unironically, he made me dislike you. Yeah, he did play a lot into that. A lot. There is definitely, I think like my biggest disagreement isn't even like him leaning on the fucking Hasan is a Russian asset memes or whatever, but more so the way he handles a lot of the stuff. The tactical N-word one is like a great demonstration of how a lot of white left adjacent or leftist kids online operate in terms of not trying to be more understanding of marginalized communities and their background and have this attitude of like talking over people. I dislike all three of you. Congratulations. You are so sick. You're the coolest, man. Okay.
to addressing that issue, especially if I spend more time being glib than being an effective communicator. I've said so many times, and I'll say it again, the forces behind these mediums do not care about anything but engagement. And if you do not resist the urge to engage and share rage bait, you are doing harm. You're doing harm. You're making things worse, possibly spreading that, in fact. The concept of leftist infighting is somewhat silly.
Yeah, like the comparing black nationalism to Nazism is...
It's a meme because we should always be like having conversations that'll sometimes lead to conflict. I get where we disagree. And I know more than a few leftists that I wouldn't trust to do much of anything in any situation in my personal or like community life space. But I've learned that making content around that is just as bad. And so like, here's the final nugget, maybe something to help folks recognize the difference between conflict and disagreement versus like world defining battles that some find themselves in online. Listen closely.
I went to high school with that stream sniper. He was bragging about it on his IG story afterwards too. God damn, dude. That's crazy. Hopefully he'll, I don't know, get out of that weird mindset that he's currently captive to.
To this. Being a leftist is not a marginalized identity. It is not who.
Yeah, lucky you survived high school with that guy around. I know. Thank God for Illinois gun control. You know what I'm saying? Holy shit, dude. Oh my God. Republicans constantly talk about like, oh, Chicago gun violence. It's like, God damn, dude. If it wasn't for like the actual restrictions of purchasing weapons in the state of Illinois, you wouldn't be in the chat right now. God damn.
Who you are.
Yeah, literally dodged a bullet there.
It's what you believe. It's what you're trying to bring to the world.
I'm shaking.
But that is not you. When people say I'm a leftist, it shouldn't be describing the whole of your personality and like humanity. And for some of y'all who I see as the biggest perpetrators of some of these problems, being a leftist doesn't make you.
We went to high school together in Texas. There is no gun control, just luck. Oh my God. That's crazy.
Stop being white. The aggrieved energy that some of y'all move with is within this space, and the way y'all operate, the way y'all talk to people, the defensiveness when you're called out or even called in, the absence of just self-awareness and critical thinking, and the things y'all say to motherfuckers in the comment section. Y'all need to chill the fuck out and shut the fuck up. It's not good. It's stop. Let me and other people who are connected to this black liberal space handle that. You all do not, unless you know them folks for real, unless you're going to have a conversation for real, you might want to avoid making content about it or expect to just throw oil on the fire. What I'm trying to get at is that some of y'all argue and respond to disagreement and criticism with the same level of tact and decorum as like the Barbs or NBA Twitter. No. Oh my goodness, Valentine. Or weebs arguing about anime. And this shit's way deeper than that. And I just need people to have more self-control so that we don't have black liberals and Palestinians being the face of this conflict for a week. That is a tragedy. Black youth are dying in the streets. Black women are dying during childbirth. Americans everywhere cannot afford housing, healthcare. Trans kids are dying through stigma and marginalization. Congolese children are dying from pestilence and having to be ousted from their homes. And Palestinian children are being bombed as I speak. And there is nothing you can immediately do to stop any of those things from happening. Most of you, there's not anything you could do right now when this video is over. And any work you actually do, which you should, will only produce results in maybe weeks, more likely months, or even years. That's the reality of how deep the problems are. And I get it that you can get a feeling of catharsis by leaving a mean comment or a response video on someone's TikTok. And as good as that might make you feel in the moment, it really only makes things worse. Very few things change from that type of interaction. It's just harmful in the end. And that goes for everyone involved, whether I mostly agree with you or not. We have to have more discipline and focus on these platforms when it comes to serious shit, because otherwise, from my perspective, this is all my opinion, this shit is a waste of time. You're better off, for those left-leaning people, just making content about anime or something, because the politics are getting perverted through these mediums. Today's video is sponsored by Ground News.
By the way, I've apparently Ground News is the one that uses the media bias chart, which literally has me under fucking has me locked up as Alex Jones. Did Miz ever say the thing? No, he's a fucking coward who didn't say the thing that he was supposed to say. Anyway, quick Beyblade break. You didn't see it, but I sent a banger rebuttal for you. Let's watch Theo Vaughn, finally. A lib friend of mine sent me the bias chart and said I shouldn't rely on you for news because I cite your talking points a lot, and I couldn't get through to him that the bias chart is biased. So angering. Really? Just make him look at the fucking liberal. The bias chart is so broken because it literally has like Breitbart above a bunch of mainstream liberal outlets. So obviously the chart is kind of busted even for liberals, dude. The fuck do you mean?